You see, in my many years of walking this earth, observing its people and their ways, I have learned one truth. Intelligence is not always about how much you know, but how you live, how you treat others, and how you learn from your mistakes. Yet, there are certain signs, 6 unmistakable signs, that reveal a person to be foolish, or, as some might say, stupid. Now, before you take offense or laugh this off, let me tell you why this matters. Recognizing these signs is not just about judging others. No, it's about looking within, avoiding these pitfalls ourselves, and helping those who may not even realize their folly. Let's walk this journey together, shall we? For the road to wisdom begins with awareness. To delve deeper, each of these signs carries a story, a lesson, and a mirror to hold up to ourselves. Let's explore them one by one. First sign, a closed mind. A fortress of ignorance built brick by brick with fear, pride, and stubbornness. You've undoubtedly encountered these individuals, people who cling to their limited beliefs like a lifeline, even when the evidence before them screams otherwise. They reject new ideas and perspectives, wrapping themselves in the illusion of certainty. But let me tell you something. True confidence doesn't come from believing you know everything. It comes from recognizing that you don't. A closed mind often masquerades as conviction, but beneath this facade lies a deep fear of being wrong. Why? Because admitting fault or ignorance feels, to some, like admitting inferiority. Take the man I once met, who was steadfast in his belief that the earth was flat. Presented with maps, photographs, and even mathematical proofs, he refused to budge. "It's all a conspiracy," he said. But in truth, his refusal to entertain the possibility of being wrong wasn't about the shape of the earth. It was about protecting his fragile sense of self. To admit error for him was to risk unraveling his identity. This fear of change, however, isn't confined to such extreme examples. It permeates everyday life. A closed mind doesn't just reject new ideas. It rejects growth itself. It resists the uncomfortable but necessary process of learning, adapting, and evolving. Imagine if every great thinker, inventor, or artist had clung to the familiar. Where would we be without the minds that dared to question, explore, and expand the boundaries of human knowledge? Progress depends on an openness to new truths and a willingness to abandon outdated ones. The truly wise understand this. They are humble enough to say, "I was mistaken," and brave enough to seek out truths that may challenge their current understanding. Wisdom begins where the walls of the mind crumble, allowing the light of new perspectives to enter. It is not a sign of weakness to change one's mind. It is a hallmark of strength and growth. The key takeaway here is simple yet profound. Wisdom begins with an open mind. When we let go of our need to be right and embrace the possibility of being wrong, we unlock our potential to grow, connect, and contribute meaningfully to the world. Second sign, constant blaming. Oh, how tempting it is to point the finger. The foolish person excels in the art of deflection, turning every misstep into someone else's fault. Missed a deadline? The system failed me. Lost a friendship. They were too sensitive. But deep down, we all know the truth, don't we? Excuses may feel like armor, but they are brittle and transparent. Let me share a story. There was once a young man in my village who dreamed of becoming a renowned artist. He had talent, no doubt, but he never seemed to finish a painting. Whenever he abandoned a project, he'd blame his tools. The brushes are poor, or the lighting isn't right. When the tools weren't at fault, he turned to external circumstances. The weather is too gloomy, he'd say. His dream stagnated, weighed down by his unwillingness to take responsibility for his own shortcomings. It wasn't until he faced himself that things began to change. One day, after yet another incomplete canvas, he admitted, It's not the tools or the weather, it's me. That moment of accountability was transformative. He began to work with intention, addressing his habits and honing his craft. Slowly but surely, his paintings took shape and his reputation grew. People began to admire not just his work, but his character. Blaming others is easy because it shields us from the pain of self-reflection. But this shield is also a prison, one that traps us in a cycle of stagnation. Without accountability, there can be no growth. Responsibility, though it may feel heavy at times, is the key to unlocking our potential. When we own our mistakes, we gain the power to correct them. When we accept responsibility, we earn the trust and respect of others, and perhaps most importantly of ourselves. Taking responsibility doesn't mean bearing the blame for things beyond our control. It means acknowledging our role in our own successes and failures. It means recognizing that while we can't always control the circumstances, we can control how we respond to them. Responsibility is not a burden, it is a path to freedom and empowerment. The wise understand this. They own their mistakes, learning and growing from them. The foolish, on the other hand, run from responsibility, preferring the fleeting comfort of excuses over the lasting fulfillment of growth. A closed mind and a tendency to blame others are two powerful indicators of foolishness. They block the path to growth, isolate us from meaningful connections, and prevent us from reaching our potential. Yet, they are not insurmountable obstacles. To overcome a closed mind, we must cultivate humility and curiosity. We must dare to question our assumptions and embrace the discomfort of being wrong. To move beyond constant blaming, we must take responsibility for our actions and decisions, understanding that accountability is the foundation of trust, growth, and self-respect. Wisdom is not a fixed destination, it is a journey. Along the way, we will encounter moments of doubt, failure, and vulnerability. But it is in these moments that we have the opportunity to learn, adapt, and become better versions of ourselves. So let us approach life with open minds and accountable hearts, ready to grow and to embrace the challenges that lead to true wisdom. Third sign, arrogance over humility. Have you ever met someone who seems to carry an unshakable need to be the smartest person in the room? They dominate conversations, dismiss opposing views, and consistently seek validation through their supposed superiority. This, my friends, is arrogance, an unmistakable hallmark of foolishness. Arrogance is not a display of confidence or wisdom. Rather, it is a mask for deep-seated insecurity. Those who are truly intelligent understand that wisdom doesn't come from speaking the loudest or the most often. Instead, it comes from listening, learning, and being open to the perspectives of others. Consider the ancient proverb, "The empty vessel makes the loudest noise." It's a simple yet profound reminder that arrogance often serves as a cover for a lack of substance. The louder someone boasts about their knowledge, the more we should question whether they are truly wise or merely compensating for a lack of genuine understanding. True wisdom doesn't need to announce itself. It reveals itself quietly through actions, empathy, and humility. I recall a young scholar who epitomized this trait. He would argue endlessly over trivial matters, desperate to prove his intellectual dominance. He was quick to dismiss the thoughts of others, assuming his way was the only way. While he may have won debates, he lost opportunities to learn and grow. Years later, humbled by life's challenges, he returned to me with a very different demeanor. "I should have listened more," he confessed. This moment of humility was a turning point for him. He realized that in his arrogance, he had closed himself off from the wisdom of others. Humility, in contrast to arrogance, is not about diminishing your worth. It is about recognizing the value in others and understanding that no one has all the answers. Humility creates space for learning and connection. It allows us to approach life with curiosity and an open mind. Arrogance, however, builds walls instead of bridges. It isolates the individual, leaving them alone even when they are surrounded by people. A truly wise person listens more than they speak. They recognize that every person they meet has something to teach them. By contrast, arrogance blinds us to this truth. It leaves us stagnant, unable to grow or adapt because we are too consumed with proving our worth to others. The key takeaway is simple yet profound. Arrogance is loud, but wisdom is quiet. True intelligence speaks softly and listens deeply. Fourth sign, lack of empathy. This next sign is perhaps the most heartbreaking, a lack of empathy. A foolish person is often incapable of seeing beyond their own immediate concerns. They lack the ability or the willingness to step into another person's shoes and feel what they feel. This absence of empathy creates a cold, lonely existence, devoid of meaningful connection. Empathy, after all, is the bridge that connects souls. Without it, we are isolated, cut off from the beauty and complexity of human relationships. The foolish person dismisses emotions as weakness. They mock vulnerability, ridicule struggles, and often harm others, sometimes intentionally, but often without realizing it. Empathy, however, is not a sign of weakness. It is an extraordinary strength. To empathize requires courage. The courage to be vulnerable, to care deeply, and to acknowledge the shared humanity in others. Let me tell you about my friend Anna. She was once deeply hurt by a colleague who ridiculed her for expressing her struggles. This colleague, consumed by their lack of empathy, dismissed her emotions as trivial and weak. Years later, that same colleague faced a hardship that left them vulnerable and seeking solace. They turned to Anna for comfort, and despite the past, she chose to forgive. "I never knew how cruel I had been until I felt the pain myself," the colleague admitted. This moment of realization, born out of experiencing empathy firsthand, was transformative. Empathy doesn't just make us kinder, it makes us wiser. It equips us with the tools to navigate life's complexities with grace and understanding. It allows us to approach others with compassion, to recognize their struggles, and to respond in ways that foster connection and healing. Without empathy, we are blind to the needs of others. We become disconnected not only from the world around us, but also from our own humanity. A lack of empathy limits our ability to form meaningful relationships. It isolates us, leaving us unable to truly understand or connect with others. Empathy, on the other hand, is the foundation of strong, enduring bonds. It enriches our lives, allowing us to see the world through diverse perspectives and find common ground even in the face of differences. The key takeaway here is that empathy is the heart's wisdom. It is the ability to feel deeply, to care genuinely, and to connect authentically. A lack of empathy, by contrast, is the mark of foolishness. It isolates the individual, depriving them of the richness that comes from truly engaging with the world around them. Arrogance and a lack of empathy are two of the most telling signs of foolishness. They hinder personal growth and create barriers to meaningful connections. Overcoming arrogance requires embracing humility, listening more, and recognizing that wisdom is not about proving your superiority, but about being open to learning. Overcoming a lack of empathy demands stepping outside of oneself, valuing the experiences and emotions of others, and cultivating compassion. These changes are not merely about becoming less foolish, they are about becoming more human. Wisdom is not measured solely by intellect, but by the depth of our understanding and the strength of our connections. Arrogance and a lack of empathy may isolate us, but humility and compassion bring us closer to the true essence of wisdom. Let us strive to listen, to empathize, and to approach life with open hearts and open minds. In doing so, we walk the path of growth, understanding, and true wisdom. The fifth sign of foolishness is the fear of change. The comfort zone, a warm, cozy prison that feels safe but stifles growth. The foolish person fears change as a child fears the dark, clinging to what they know, even when it no longer serves them. They hold on to outdated habits, ideas, and routines, resisting the natural flow of life. But life, my dear friends, is like a river. It flows, bends, and changes constantly. The wise understand this and embrace change, while the foolish resist, futilely trying to hold water in their hands. You've heard the saying, haven't you? The only constant in life is change, yet the fear of change persists. I once knew a farmer who perfectly illustrated this point. He had worked the same fields for decades, using the same methods passed down through generations. Over time, his yields diminished, but he stubbornly clung to his old ways, convinced that change was unnecessary. It wasn't until his son, eager and innovative, introduced modern techniques that the farm began to thrive once more. The old farmer, humbled but wiser, finally admitted, "Change was what saved us." This story is not unique to farming. It applies to all areas of life, relationships, careers, and even our inner beliefs. In relationships, clinging to outdated dynamics or habits can create stagnation. In careers, refusing to adapt to new technologies or approaches can leave one obsolete. Even our beliefs, if left unchecked, can become rigid and limit our perspective. Growth demands change, and change demands courage. The fear of change is ultimately a fear of the unknown, but it is precisely within the unknown that growth, opportunity, and transformation lie. Resisting change is akin to standing still in a moving river. You will not stop the current, but you will tire yourself out fighting against it. On the other hand, embracing change allows you to flow with life, adapt, and grow. The key takeaway is this: change is growth, and resisting it leads to stagnation. It takes courage to leave the comfort zone, but the rewards are worth the risk. The sixth sign of foolishness is talking more than listening. Let me ask you this: have you ever learned anything new while talking? Of course not. Wisdom comes from listening, yet the foolish person loves the sound of their own voice. They interrupt, dominate conversations, and rarely pause to hear what others have to say. Their words fill the air, but they lack the silence needed for understanding to take root. I am reminded of a merchant who struggled for years to make a profit. He was charming, confident, and full of ideas, but he had one glaring flaw: he couldn't stop talking. He would pitch his products enthusiastically, but he never paused long enough to understand his customers' needs. Frustrated by his lack of success, he finally sought advice. The solution was simple but transformative. He needed to listen. When he began asking questions and truly hearing his customers, everything changed. "I learned more in a month of listening than in years of talking," he later told me. His business flourished, and so did his relationships with those around him. Listening is not a passive act. It is an active choice to value others' perspectives. When we listen, we open ourselves to new ideas, insights, and connections. In the silence of listening, the seeds of understanding and wisdom are planted. Conversely, talking without listening is like scattering seeds into the wind. Nothing takes root. Foolishness lies in believing that what we have to say is always more important than what we might learn. The wise understand that listening is learning, while talking without listening is ignorance in action. The key takeaway here is simple yet profound. Listening is a skill that fosters growth, understanding, and connection. By choosing to listen more than we speak, we create space for wisdom to enter our lives. In conclusion, the journey toward wisdom is one we all must undertake. So there you have it, The 6 signs of a foolish person: the inability to learn from mistakes, arrogance, impulsivity, fear of change, talking more than listening, and resisting growth. But let me leave you with this thought. We have all been foolish at times. I certainly have. What matters is not where you start, but where you choose to go from here. Wisdom is not a destination, but a continuous journey. It's about recognizing these signs in ourselves and striving to overcome them. Each sign, when faced and conquered, becomes a stepping stone toward a more fulfilling and meaningful life. Fear of change, for instance, when replaced with courage, opens the door to growth. Overcoming the habit of talking too much allows us to learn from others and build deeper connections. These shifts transform not only our actions, but also our mindset and the quality of our relationships. As we part ways today, I challenge you to reflect. Which of these signs do you see in yourself? And more importantly, what will you do about it? Wisdom is open to all who are brave enough to pursue it. It requires humility, patience, and a willingness to grow. Remember, the path to wisdom is not reserved for the few. It is available to anyone who seeks it with an open heart and a determined spirit. Thank you for walking this path with me today. May your journey be filled with growth, understanding, and the courage to embrace the wisdom that lies ahead.